Hi, this is Rod Saunders from Jew and Greek. Well, Spencer Smith is at it again. You may recall that a few months ago I did a video responding to his claim that Carrie Job is a heretic because she attended Oral Roberts University and expressed her support for Bethel Church's Wake Up Olive efforts. Well, now he's claiming that Brian Head Welch from the rock group Korn has officially renounced Christianity. What does he base that on? Well, Welch recently did an interview where he said that he went a little too far in promoting Jesus after he got saved, and he needed to settle down and become more normal. How Spencer gets renouncing Christ out of that is anybody's guess. My sense is that Spencer knows good and well that Welch didn't renounce Christ, but he needed a catchy title for his video, so he crossed the ethical line into clickbaiting by saying something that simply isn't supported by the facts. In this clip from a recent interview, Welch talks about how he became an annoying religious fanatic.
Do you feel like when you got sober, quit drugs, Xanax and Vicodin and everything that you were on, and then went into Christianity, that became your new addiction in a way?
The thing is, the crazy thing is I had an experience with something from another dimension, and it wasn't the religion, going to church and being a good boy. It was like I felt something come into my house, and I can't explain it to this day, but to me, and I believe that it was Christ just doing something in me, and so that was real. That was very real. But yes, I think I went too far with it, and I got obsessed with it, just like I was obsessed with the drugs. So that's a great question, and I believe I did for sure. And I had to come out of that and find normalcy, because there's nothing worse than a freaking irritating, religious person just shoving it down your throat. There's nothing worse than that.
Based on that clip, Spencer Smith concludes that Brian Welch has departed from the faith.
I believe a man can get backslid, but I don't believe he can be backslid very long. And I certainly do not believe that a saved man is going to blatantly say something like, and I had to come out of that and find normalcy, because there's nothing worse than an irritating religious person just shoving it down your throat. There's nothing worse than that. I do not believe a born-again person will do that. And the Bible simply does not teach that they will. They will be a new creature. Saying that, I had to come out of that. I had to come out of that Christianity stuff and find normalcy. That's being overcome by the world. I want to tell you that Brian Welch is like a lot of people. He has a superficial profession. He lives just like the world, acts just like the world, does the same thing the world does. And he's not saved.
But that isn't what Welch was saying at all. He was just describing what Reformed people refer to as the cage stage, a phase you go through where your zeal for the Lord isn't matched by wisdom and discretion. You then learn to relax and focus on showing the love of God and His presence in your life, rather than cramming your religion down everybody's throat. I think most of us have been there at some point in our Christian life. Now let me show you what a reasonable person takes away from Brian Welch's comments.
So here's the truth. Anybody that's been walking with God knows that you initially get saved, and for that first 6 months, you kind of think you know everything about everything. You kind of have a know-it-all mentality. You tend to jump into legalism. You tend to tell everybody all of their sins. Chance just talked about this, watching Kanye go through it in real time. Brian Head Welch even did a video, if you guys look up Brian Head Welch, about Kanye, and he talks about how, hey, I remember what it's like being in his steps, and I remember how it's being, kind of being judgmental and having some strain in your relationships. Imagine all of that. Imagine all of that off of 700 days of doing meth straight and being a rock star and traveling and always moving. That's a lot. That's a lot for anybody to process. And then to transition to that, it's going to be a messy transition. When you get radically saved, you go through a season of being kind of annoying to be around, and then eventually you find some balance. you find some consistency. Hopefully you're in a local church and there's some discipleship that's happening. There's some holiness that's happening. And you're no longer the guy showing up to concerts, holding up nasty signs. You're no longer the person taking your friends' secular CDs and burning them. That was a thing. Yes, all throughout the 80s and 90s, people would burn secular CDs, smash secular CDs. It was ridiculous, right? And then you live life a little bit and you start going through things and you start seeing some challenges and you start finding ways to, I don't know, keep working a secular job, to keep being around family members that aren't as sanctified as you, to maintain some of those friendships from your childhood where they may not be walking with Jesus yet. These are all good things, guys. These are all good things. The only difference is that Brian's a rock star and he was on meth for 700 days in a row. So maybe that was more extreme to him and he was a bit more messy with some of these relationships.
This guy's name is Ruslan. He's a Christian hip-hop recording engineer and YouTuber. I don't always agree with him on theology and politics, but he's a decent guy who doesn't resort to clickbaiting and yellow journalism to get views. He says that it's understandable that Welch went a tad overboard after getting saved and needed to normalize somewhat. In this clip from an interview with Hillsong late last year, Welch talks about his faith.
I'm a mess. My daughter's a bigger mess than she's ever been. And I'm like, how are you good? And it was like, where am I going to go? You have the words to life, Jesus. I'm just going to wait this out and see what happens. And it was a big test, honestly. I had a lot of bitterness.
How did you make sense of it in that moment? After the conversation with God, being angry, how are you good? How did you get over it?
I think just the understanding of the ways, the mysteries of suffering that I learned, that there's a process and that it's like fire that burns away the dross and purifies you like gold. So I had that understanding, and I'm like, I guess I'm just in the fire right now.
Being a Christian and being in this secular world, how do you sustain your convictions?
Intimacy, that's it.
What does that mean?
Say, okay, God, you come, and I'm gonna be silent and let you be still and let you be God, and speak to me.
Yeah.
Touch me, show me who you are. My biggest prayer and question for him is, I want to know you.
Do you feel like you know him?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know, I definitely know God, but sometimes, sometimes things get confusing,
Yep.
and so that's faith and trust.
Now, does that sound like the thoughts of a man who is no longer interested in Jesus and his faith? Regardless of what you think of Brian Welch's tattoos and his music and his dreads and the crowd he associates with, God is his judge, not you, not me, and certainly not some King James only fundamental Baptist clickbaiting discernment YouTuber like Spencer Smith. And even if he's not as sanctified as we might think he should be, it's simply not true that Welch has officially left Christianity, and Spencer Smith ought to be ashamed of himself for stooping to this level. Discernment is a two-way street. It not only means discerning right from wrong in others, it also means discerning right from wrong in what you say about others. Thanks for watching, and be blessed.